All right, now Marisa McKay is here with some more campaign talk and this week's Choice 2012.
Welcome back, everybody, to Choice 2012, a new political segment here on WBKB News. Joining me, as always, is Instructor of Political Science, Tim Kuhnlein from Alpena Community College. Now, Tim, everybody seems to be talking about the Middle East in terms of foreign policy, and last week we introduced the subject of foreign policy. We're going to continue that tonight with talking about President Obama's speech to the UN General Assembly last month on the heels of the U.S. ambassador to Libya's assassination. Now, is the Middle East really where we should, as voters and viewers, be focusing our energies?
I think in terms of foreign policy, it is the appropriate area. And I think the President did a decent job in defending principles of freedom of speech at that UN Assembly speech, if you listen to it. The whole Benghazi debacle is really quite interesting. What was the ambassador doing outside the embassy on 9/11? Why Benghazi, the most volatile part of Libya? But I think, with no disrespect to the lives that were lost, this is really a blurb in the context. And it's a reality check for us. We are at war, and I think we forget that. And we're at war in a part of the world that's in the midst of a revolution, and we are injecting ourselves in that revolution. Our revolution lasted 8 years, and I think that we have to understand the Middle East as the center of the post-Cold War era. They're angry, they're bitter. We have to be careful not to be rash and get ourselves deeper into the abyss. In some respects, I think this is exactly what our enemies want.
Definitely. All right, now, Tim, the Middle East, as we've just discussed, there's a lot going on there, but it is not the only epicenter of foreign policy. Now, we have choices. That's the whole point of this segment. What are some of the choices, as viewers, that we need to make in terms of where foreign policy aid should be focused?
Well, I think that's a good way to say it. The choices of focus. Clearly, Iran minimizing, not igniting. The European Union ensuring a fiscal solvency. With China and Russia, it's brokering a balance of trade and a balance of power. We have some developments in Latin America with the recent re-election of Hugo Chavez in Venezuela. We have to promote a balance of ideology in this hemisphere. And when it comes to the candidates for Congress and the presidency, the things I think we need to look for as choices in terms of policy objectives are who is going to de-escalate tensions, which policy is going to de-escalate tensions and minimize the threat to our national security. Secondly, who's going to minimize, or which policies, set of policies is going to minimize the overreach that we tend to engage in this post-World War II context. Too many places, the wrong places, right places. How do we minimize this? And lastly, I think we need to foster a respect for national security while at the same time we are supporting defensive capabilities, but paying attention to fiscal solvency of this nation. These are the choices we have in 2012.
Definitely, you bring up a lot of big issues, a lot of big things voters need to be concerned about. So thank you, Tim, for joining me today on Choice 2012. And if you have anything you feel needs to be discussed, feel free to email me at marisa@wbkb11.com. And make sure to stay tuned next week, where Tim and I will be discussing taxes and debt in America.